You've rigged up your character, or rather you've made an armature and parented it to the character, and then you started animating, and you went like, okay, let's move this bone like this and this bone like this, and you quickly figured out that this is just going to freaking kill you. And you're trying to improve it with inverse kinematics, and you've come to the right place, and that is indeed a very good idea. So this is specifically about inverse kinematics on tentacles. It's a very good place to get started with inverse kinematics because it's actually not very complicated. And you don't have to worry about like feet rotation and all that kind of stuff because tentacles don't have feet, as far as I'm aware of anyway. So what you're gonna do is you go into edit mode. You can do this before or after you parent your armature to the mesh. It really doesn't matter. You go to the very tip top end of your tentacle and you press E to extrude and you extrude out a new bone. Then selecting that new bone, you press Alt and P and then you clear parent. So it's no longer parented to the bone you just extruded it from. Then you go to where the elbow should be. Most limbs are going to have a bending point, right? So for the tentacle, that's probably somewhere around the middle. So for me, that would be roughly this bone over here. So you extrude one out of that as well, downwards in this case. And you do the exact same thing. You do Alt P, clear parent. After making these bones, it's very important to go into the bone properties tab, go into deform and uncheck it on both of the bones that you've just made, because otherwise it might mess up your weight painting or the export of the armature once you get ready to export it into something like a game engine. Now, that's all you need to do for every single tentacle, but we're going to keep it at just this one tentacle for the purposes of this video. And you go back into pose mode. Then you select the last bone of your tentacle, the one that you extruded the first bone out of. And over here in the right-hand panel, you go all the way down to bone constraint options. You're going to add a bone constraint, and that's going to be a inverse kinematics constraint. From here, you need to select a target, which is going to be the armature, and then you need to select the exact bone that is going to be using as a controller. So in this case, that will be bone 28. So we go bone, we type in 28, and we can select that. And then the paw target is the direction that the elbow is going to be facing when you animate it. So that'll be this bone that we also just created here, bone 29, that makes sense. So again, paw target, you select this armature and then specifically specify bone number 29. Now, your thing will twist up quite a bit and things will be really weird at first and you will panic and you will think, this all goes wrong, I'll just do it manually. Hold on, it's not that difficult to fix. Because your chain length is set to 0, it's affecting the entire mesh. So if we set the chain length to the amount of bones that we need to affect, so that's this 1, 2, 3, 4, you will then notice that it's only affecting these 4 bones in total. And then still something is a little off, right? Because it's still a little banded, and especially if we start moving around this pull target, you can see that it's not really pointing towards it at all. What it's doing, in fact, is it's pointing 90 degrees away from it. That's very easy to fix as well. Click on the bone with the constraint on again, and we have got a pull angle here. Depending on your mesh and depending on your specific situation, you might need to put something different in here. Usually it's going to be either 90 degrees or minus 90 degrees. In this case, I think it's 90. Yeah, it is. And now the paw target is actually what the elbow is facing toward. And at this point, if you want to animate it, you just grab the controller, you do what you want to do with it, you grab the paw target, you do what you want to do with that, and you've got your inverse kinematic tentacle. Now, you can use this for arms and legs and all sorts of things that slowly start to get more complicated. We'll get into that in future videos perhaps, but for the time being, this is the very basics of inverse kinematics. It's you have a controller, you have a paw target, and you have your chain length, and that together, once you combine that, will create something a little more akin to this. That being said, you don't need a paw target. For this specific model, I didn't apply paw targets to every single tentacle because I didn't really need it. That's not a smart thing to do. Do as I say, don't do as I do. But if you apply those tentacle inverse kinematics to the entire model, you then very easily can animate something a little more like this, which just imagine having to animate all these bones by hand. It's going to feel stiff and unnatural, and it's going to be a lot more work for a worse result. So do yourself a favor, get used to animating with inverse kinematics.